Hello, Sagittarius. Take a few moments to relax, take a deep breath, and open your heart to whatever messages may be finding their way to you right now. This is a collective reading, so take what truly resonates with your soul and gently let the rest drift away. Okay, the energy showing up here today feels very different, very significant. It feels like someone is standing at a major crossroads in their life, and wow, it's almost like they're beginning to see everything from a completely different perspective. Things they once ignored, feelings they kept buried deep inside, choices they thought they could keep putting off for another day. All of it seems to be finding its way back to them now. What stands out the most to me is this feeling of awakening. You know, that moment when someone suddenly realizes that time has been moving the whole time, that nothing has really been standing still, and the person they once believed would always be there is changing, growing, moving forward. The truth is, something about this connection feels very different right now. So let's take a closer look and see what's really unfolding within the energy between you and this person. What really stands out to me right now is this feeling that someone is beginning to see everything through completely different eyes. The Judgment card comes through here, not in a loud way, not like some sudden shock. It's more like someone waking up after a very long sleep. They're spending more time alone, thinking more, observing more, and honestly, the one thing they can't seem to stop thinking about is you, Sagittarius. It feels like this person truly believed you would always be there, not because they didn't care, but because in their mind, this connection felt permanent, familiar, steady, reliable. They thought they still had time. They thought if they didn't say something today, there would always be another chance tomorrow. If they didn't take action now, a few months from now wouldn't make much difference. If they kept their distance a little longer, Sagittarius would still be standing in the same place. But wow, the energy I'm picking up tells a very different story. Because Sagittarius isn't standing still anymore. You're moving. You're living your life. You're creating new experiences, meeting new people, spending more time investing in yourself instead of staring down the same road over and over again. And strangely enough, that's exactly what's starting to shake this person awake. The Six of Wands card appears very strongly here. I keep seeing them watching you from afar, maybe through social media, maybe through things they've heard. Maybe it's simply because they can feel that your energy has changed. But what they're seeing now is no longer a Sagittarius waiting for someone else's answer. They're seeing a Sagittarius moving forward, a Sagittarius becoming more confident, more grounded, more comfortable in their own skin, and more radiant in a way that's impossible to ignore. Part of them feels proud of you, but another part of them feels scared. Because for the first time, they're realizing that your world doesn't revolve around them. And if they keep hesitating, there may come a day when they no longer hold that special place in your world. I see this person replaying old memories over and over again, old conversations, old moments they once took for granted. Because back then, they didn't fully understand their value. Back then, they thought there would always be more time, that everything would stay the same, that Sagittarius would always understand, always be patient, always wait. But okay, they're not so sure anymore, and that uncertainty is waking something up deep inside of them. The Queen of Wands card comes through and completely fills the space of this reading. I see them looking at you and wondering how they ever underestimated you in the first place. You weren't trying to prove anything. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't trying to convince anyone to choose you. You were simply living your life. And somehow, that's exactly what makes it impossible for them to look away. It's almost like they're realizing that Sagittarius's greatest strength was never about holding on to people. It was always about shining with or without them. And that realization is bringing up a lot of questions. What if I keep staying silent? What if I keep delaying this? What if Sagittarius really does move into a completely new chapter? What if I've already waited too long? I see so many emotions rising to the surface all at once. Worry, regret, confusion, fear. The Knight of Wands card appears right beside the Judgment card. And here's the interesting thing. This energy no longer feels like someone standing still and watching. Something is beginning to move. A pull. A sense of urgency. Almost like they've suddenly realized the clock has never stopped ticking. Time never stood still. Sagittarius never stood still. And for the first time in a very long time, this person is beginning to feel the pressure of making a choice. Because they're seeing the distance between the two of you in a completely different way now. Not physical distance, not circumstances, but the distance created by missed opportunities, missed chances, words left unsaid. And when I look a little deeper into this energy, I see someone standing face to face with a truth they've been avoiding for a very long time. A truth they can no longer hide from. Because deep down, They're beginning to understand that what scares them most isn't opening their heart. It's the possibility that Sagittarius may keep moving forward without waiting for them anymore. It feels like this person is standing in front of a door they never truly wanted to open before. Not because they couldn't see it, but because opening that door would mean facing a lot of things they've been avoiding for a very long time. The Hermit card comes through here, and wow, everything around them feels unusually quiet. They're talking less, seeking less validation from other people, paying less attention to all the noise around them. It's almost like, for the first time in a very long time, they're finally sitting alone with themselves. And Sagittarius, you keep showing up in those moments more than they'd like to admit. What's interesting is that this shift isn't happening because of something you said. It's not coming from a conversation. It's not because someone convinced them. It's happening because the things they once trusted without question are slowly losing their weight. I can feel the energy of someone beginning to question beliefs they once treated like absolute truths. The advice, the standards, the expectations, the voices they always listened to, maybe family, maybe friends, maybe people they genuinely believed knew what was best for them. But deep down, one question keeps coming back, again and again. If all of that was really right, then why do I still feel like something is missing? And that's when the Hanged Man card appears. The energy of the reading shifts immediately. I see them looking back at so many old decisions, not to blame themselves, but to understand. To understand why they chose what they chose, why they allowed outside opinions to influence them so deeply, why they once viewed Sagittarius through other people's perspectives instead of through their own heart. And honestly, this isn't easy, because when someone starts seeing life through a different lens, they also have to admit that they got some things wrong, that they trusted certain people too much, that they allowed certain fears to steer their life for far too long. I see so many mixed emotions surfacing here. A little sadness, a little regret, a little embarrassment, but also relief. The kind of relief that comes when someone finally takes off a coat they've been wearing for years, only to realize it stopped fitting a long time ago. Then, the Tower card appears, not in a chaotic way, not like everything is collapsing overnight. It's more like cracks that have existed for years are finally becoming visible in the light. The things they tried so hard to protect, the beliefs they held onto, the reasons they used to justify their choices, all of it is slowly losing its foundation. I see them realizing that many of their past decisions were actually rooted in fear. Fear of being judged, fear of disappointing people, fear of stepping outside their comfort zone. And when they look back at Sagittarius through that realization, something keeps pulling at their attention. You never built your life around fear the way they did. Sure, you've had doubts, you've been hurt, you've needed time, but you kept moving, you kept exploring, you kept expanding your world, and honestly, they admire that more than they've ever shown. The Death card appears right beside the Tower card, and it feels like a very old chapter is quietly coming to an end inside of them. Nobody forced this change. Nobody demanded this awakening, but they no longer feel comfortable being the version of themselves they've been for so long. The version always seeking approval. The version constantly worrying about what everyone else thinks. The version that put other people's expectations ahead of their own inner voice. Something is shifting here in a very powerful way. They're beginning to ask themselves questions they never allowed before. What if I actually lived according to what my heart is telling me? What if I stopped listening to everyone else for just a moment? What if what I feel about Sagittarius was never wrong to begin with? These aren't passing thoughts anymore. They're staying with them, following them through their days, returning during quiet moments. And when I look even deeper into this energy, I see a very powerful moment unfolding. It's almost like this person is standing between two versions of themselves. One version still wants to return to what's familiar, to what's safe, to what's expected. The other version has started to see an entirely different path. And what's fascinating is that, for the first time, the newer version is becoming stronger. And that realization is leading them toward a truth they've avoided for a very long time. Because maybe, just maybe, the thing they need to let go of was never Sagittarius. Maybe it's all the things that stopped them from seeing Sagittarius clearly in the first place. There's something much softer moving through this energy now. The resistance isn't as strong as it once was. The need to prove something isn't there anymore. Honestly, what I see is someone becoming more honest with themselves. And once that honesty begins to surface, a flood of memories starts finding its way back. The Six of Cups card appears here. Not the big memories, not the moments everyone would remember, but the small ones. A conversation that seemed ordinary at the time, a glance, a sentence, a moment when Sagittarius showed up exactly when they needed someone the most. Those memories keep replaying again and again. And what's interesting is that there was a time when they didn't think those moments mattered all that much. But distance has a strange way of revealing someone's true value. The farther away they feel, the clearer things become. The more they miss someone, the more they understand what truly mattered. I see this person trying to move on. They've tried keeping themselves busy. They've tried focusing on other goals. They've tried convincing themselves that feelings fade. That time would eventually soften everything. That there were plenty of other possibilities waiting for them out there. But here's the thing. Every time they tried walking toward a different path, something quietly led them back to the same place. Sagittarius. I feel like they've compared people before, not in a cruel way, not intentionally. It happened almost without realizing it. They met someone new, talked to someone new, opened themselves to other possibilities. But the more experiences they had, the more they became aware of a space inside them that nobody seemed able to fill. Because what they miss isn't just a person. They miss how they felt around you. They miss the way you allowed them to be themselves. They miss the feeling of being truly seen without having to become someone else first. The Two of Cups card comes through very clearly, and I keep seeing this realization growing stronger. The thing they spent so much time searching for in different places may have been standing right in front of them all along. Some connections create attraction. Some create excitement. But this feels different, much different. It's a familiarity that's difficult to explain. Like meeting someone and not feeling the need to perform, not feeling the need to prove your worth, not feeling like love has to be earned through competition. I feel like they're finally beginning to understand why Sagittarius has always stood apart. Not because you're perfect, not because you've never made mistakes, but because you're real. You live according to what you genuinely feel. You don't constantly reshape yourself just to be accepted, and honestly, that's becoming something they admire more with every passing day. The Lover's card appears in the middle of the reading almost like a quiet pause, a moment of stillness. I see this person standing in front of many choices in life. Choices about work, choices about where they belong, choices about what kind of future they want to create. And somehow, whenever they picture those possibilities, Sagittarius keeps showing up somewhere in the image. Not because they're forcing themselves to think about you, but because the feeling never fully left. It's been there the whole time, quiet, persistent, still alive beneath the surface, not fading the way they thought it would. It's almost like they're beginning to look back on this entire journey from a completely different perspective. Instead of asking why everything had to be so difficult, they're asking something else. Why, after all this time, can't I forget them? Why, after all these experiences, do I still compare everything to what we shared? Why does my heart still react every time I hear their name? Every time I see something that reminds me of them? A song, a place, a familiar phrase. Something small that somehow brings all those feelings rushing back. Then the King of Cups card appears, and wow, this energy feels very different from what came before. Less chaos, less fear, deeper, more mature. I don't see someone running from their emotions anymore. I see someone sitting with them, listening to them, acknowledging them, even when it hurts, even when it forces them to face things they wish they had done differently. There's a confession here that still hasn't been spoken out loud. A truth they've only recently admitted to themselves. That out of everyone they've ever met, out of every road they've tried to walk, out of every moment they believed they had found something better, nobody has ever made them feel the way Sagittarius does. And the moment that realization settles into their heart, it opens the door to an even bigger question. Because if what they're feeling is real, if these emotions are still here after everything, then are they truly brave enough to face whatever comes next? I can feel the energy shifting once again. This isn't really about feelings anymore. This isn't about wondering whether Sagittarius is special. Honestly, I think they've already answered that question for themselves. What's weighing on them now lives somewhere deeper, somewhere much harder to face. Because recognizing how you feel about someone is one thing. Having the courage to live according to those feelings is something entirely different. The Five of Wands card appears first, and immediately the energy becomes more intense. Not tension between the two of you, tension within them. I see so many different voices existing at the same time. One part of them wants to move towards Sagittarius. Another part worries about everything that could change if they do. It feels like this person has spent a very long time living according to a certain pattern, doing what's expected, considering other people's reactions before listening to themselves, keeping everything under control. But Sagittarius was never something they could neatly control. You made them feel more, think more, dream about possibilities they never would have considered before. And wow, That's both beautiful and terrifying to them. I see them imagining things, not a meeting, not a conversation, but what life might actually look like if they chose this path. What would change? Who would disagree? Who wouldn't understand? Who would have questions? The Hierophant card comes through very strongly here. I can feel the weight of rules, expectations, beliefs that have existed in their world for a very long time. Maybe family, maybe the environment they grew up in, maybe values they've always believed they were supposed to follow. What's interesting is that they never really questioned those things before. But the more they think about Sagittarius, the more they realize that some of those beliefs no longer fit the person they're becoming. I see them standing between two worlds. One is familiar, predictable, comfortable. The other is where their heart keeps pulling them. And for the first time, the easier choice no longer feels like the one that brings them peace. That realization confuses them, because they're beginning to understand that safety and happiness aren't always the same thing. The Seven of Wands card appears, and I feel like this person is preparing for something. Not necessarily taking action immediately, more like preparing themselves mentally, almost as if they know difficult conversations may eventually need to happen. They know there may be people who disagree, people who don't understand, people who question their choices. But the energy feels very different from before. In the past, thoughts like that would have made them step back. This time, they're asking a completely different question. Can I really spend my entire life trying to make everyone else happy? That question keeps following them, day after day, again and again. And every time it comes back, Sagittarius appears in their thoughts. Not as some distant fantasy, not as an impossible dream, but as a real person, a real connection, a real possibility. Then the Strength card appears in the center of the reading. And honestly, this feels beautiful. Not the strength of control, not the strength of ego, but the kind of strength that only shows up when someone stops running from the truth. I see them learning how to be honest with themselves, learning how to admit that certain fears have been steering their life for far too long. Fear of commitment, fear of judgment, fear of stepping away from what's familiar, fear of choosing a direction without knowing exactly how everything will unfold. But here's what stands out the most. They don't want those fears making their decisions anymore. There's a very powerful moment unfolding here, almost like they're looking at Sagittarius through completely different eyes. Not the eyes of someone analyzing, not the eyes of someone weighing pros and cons, but the eyes of someone realizing the value of something before it's gone. And as that awareness grows stronger, a truth begins to emerge that they can no longer ignore. If they genuinely want Sagittarius to be part of their future, they're going to have to become far braver than the version of themselves they've been up until now. Because the question ahead is no longer about how they feel. They already know that. The real question, waiting for them now, is whether they're willing to act on those feelings when the moment arrives. I can feel a very clear shift happening inside this person now. Not the kind of change everyone around them would notice, not dramatic announcements, not grand gestures, not anything designed to attract attention. It's deeper than that. It's a kind of exhaustion, a deep exhaustion. They're tired of playing the same role, tired of repeating the same cycles, tired of pretending everything is fine when their heart keeps telling them otherwise. The Judgment card appears again, but this time, the energy feels completely different. This isn't the initial awakening anymore. This isn't the first realization. It's more like they've been staring at the truth for so long that they can no longer turn away from it. I see this person looking back over their own journey. The moments they stayed silent when they should have spoken. The moments they stepped back when they wanted to move forward. The moments they allowed fear to make decisions that should have belonged to their heart. Certain memories keep surfacing. Memories that don't sit comfortably with them anymore. Moments where they wish they had handled things differently. Not because they want to live in regret, but because, for the first time, they truly understand how much distance those choices created. And honestly, I feel a great deal of sincerity here, especially when Sagittarius comes into their thoughts. The excuses are fading. The justifications are fading. The need to blame circumstances is fading. What's left is someone slowly admitting that they hurt a person who mattered far more than they once realized. Then the Ace of Swords card comes through like a fresh breath of air. Something is becoming crystal clear in their mind. A decision, a confession, a conversation. I don't feel like they want to keep hiding their feelings anymore. In fact, I see them rehearsing things they've never had the courage to say before. Words appearing and disappearing in their thoughts, imagined conversations, explanations, apologies. Things that should have been spoken a long time ago. And what catches my attention the most is that they're no longer asking themselves, what happens if I say something? Instead, they're asking a completely different question. What happens if I don't? And that's where everything begins to change. Because people usually move when the pain of staying where they are becomes heavier than the fear of taking a step forward. The Knight of Pentacles card appears with a very grounded energy. No rushing, no impulsiveness, no emotional reaction that disappears a few days later. I see someone trying to build something solid inside themselves first. Almost like they understand that if they're going to move towards Sagittarius, they need to do it with maturity. Not with beautiful promises, not with temporary emotions, but with something that can actually last. Something that can stand the test of time. It's almost like this person is learning how to become someone they can trust. And the more they do that, the differently they begin to see Sagittarius. They're noticing things they overlooked before. Your patience, your compassion, your quiet strength. The qualities they once took for granted are becoming the very things they miss the most. Then the Eight of Wands card appears, and suddenly the energy begins to accelerate. Everything feels like it's moving faster. It's almost as if a long season of thinking is reaching its limit. Some feelings don't want to stay buried anymore. Some words don't want to remain unspoken anymore. Some truths have lived in their heart for far too long, and the longer they hold them back, the heavier they become. I see them looking towards Sagittarius with a greater sense of urgency now. Not panic, not desperation. Just an awareness that time continues to move, life continues to move. And every day they remain silent is another day they don't know how much wider the distance between you becomes. What's interesting is that their focus has changed. They're no longer obsessing over what they might lose. They're thinking about what they genuinely want. And Sagittarius keeps appearing at the center of that vision, not as a distant dream, not as some vague possibility, but as someone they want to move closer to, someone they want to be more honest with, someone they no longer want to run from emotionally. Because after all the old cycles, after all the delays, after all the times they convinced themselves to wait a little longer, they're standing very close to a moment that could completely change the direction of this connection. And what makes their heart race now isn't fear. It's a question they still can't stop thinking about. A question that keeps returning whenever they imagine finally stepping forward. How would Sagittarius respond if this time they showed up with nothing but honesty in their hands and the truth in their heart? I can feel a very different kind of peace moving through this energy now. Not the kind of peace that comes from having every problem solved. It's the kind of peace that appears when someone finally understands what truly matters to them. There have been periods in this person's life when they always felt like they needed to keep searching. One more opportunity, one more experience, one more option, one more road to explore. It's almost like they believed there was always something better waiting somewhere out there. But when I look at the energy now, I don't feel that restless search anymore. I simply see someone stopping, for the first time in a very long time. And when they stop, they see Sagittarius, not as a possibility, not as one option among many, but as an important part of the future they're beginning to imagine. The Chariot card appears here, and what stands out immediately is that this person no longer feels stuck at a crossroads. That energy of hesitation we've seen before is slowly fading into the background. That doesn't mean the fear is completely gone. It doesn't mean everything suddenly feels easy, but there is one very important difference. They're no longer allowing fear to take the driver's seat. It feels like they've spent a long time thinking, a long time analyzing, a long time questioning what the right answer is. And after all those circles of thought, they keep arriving at the same place, Sagittarius. I see them imagining very ordinary things now, not fairy tales, not perfect fantasies, just real life, sharing dinner after a long day, waking up beside someone in the morning, talking through the pressures of everyday life, experiencing the beautiful days and the difficult ones together. And honestly, that's the part that touches me the most. They're no longer thinking about love as a temporary emotion. They're starting to think about it as a place to come home to. The King of Pentacles card comes through with a very grounded presence. I feel this person changing the way they define success. In the past, they may have focused heavily on what they wanted to achieve, what they wanted to own, what they wanted to prove. But now they're beginning to ask themselves a different question. What does any of it really mean if there's no one truly important to share it with at the end of the day? It's almost like they're realizing that a meaningful life isn't built on accomplishments alone. It's built on connection, trust, presence, and strangely enough, whenever they think about those things, Sagittarius keeps appearing in their mind. I see them remembering how authentic you always felt, how you made them feel seen, how you brought a sense of peace they didn't fully appreciate at the time. The Two of Cups card appears beautifully here. The energy softens. There's less resistance, less inner conflict, less struggle. It's almost like after a very long journey, this person is finally allowing themselves to admit something their heart has known for quite some time. Some connections don't come into our lives to make things more complicated. They come to remind us what truly matters. I see them looking at Sagittarius as a partner, not only someone they love, but someone they want to share life with, someone they want to tell about their day, someone they want to build long-term plans with, someone they want beside them during life's most important milestones. Then, the Four of Wands card appears. And wow, the entire reading seems to light up with a warm and comforting feeling. Not excitement, not intensity, but belonging. The feeling of someone beginning to see the future more clearly. I don't see them focusing on what could be lost anymore. I see them focusing on what could be built together. Memories, adventures, a home, a life where both people are present. And when I look even deeper into this energy, the Ten of Pentacles card appears almost like the final chapter of a very long journey. Something inside this person is settling. It's as if pieces that once felt scattered are finally beginning to fit together. I don't see someone who wants to keep searching. I don't see someone chasing temporary things anymore. I don't see someone wanting to live in uncertainty forever. What I see is someone realizing that happiness isn't always about finding something new. Sometimes it's about recognizing the value of what has been standing in front of you all along. And when they picture the future they genuinely want, no matter which direction they look, no matter how they imagine that life unfolding, Sagittarius is always there, not in the background, not at the edge of the story, but woven into it. Like an important part of the life they're hoping to keep writing from this point forward. And Sagittarius, no matter how deeply this story resonated with you, I hope it gave you something meaningful to reflect on. Because sometimes the most important part of a journey isn't what someone else may choose to do next. It's how you continue honoring your own worth as you move forward. So keep living your life, keep expanding your world, keep becoming more of who you are, and keep shining in that uniquely Sagittarius way that no one else can quite replicate. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Honestly, I appreciate every view, every comment, and every moment we get to share together in this space. It means more than you probably realize. And if this reading spoke to your heart in some way, take what resonates with you and gently leave the rest behind. That's always okay. You know, every single one of you matters to me. And I'm truly grateful that our paths crossed here today. I'll be seeing you again in the next video. And until then, take good care of yourself. Be kind to your heart. Be patient with your journey. And keep moving forward at your own pace. Okay, Sagittarius, this is where we'll leave things for now. Thank you for being here. Take care, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.